Just a basement. My dad and I, we dug it out because it was hillside, and we dug about 6 feet on the top of the hill where it goes up, and the end was nothing. The house was 24 foot, but at the end it was ground level at the end, you know. And the war came along, and we left the basement. We had the basement covered with a floor on top, and covered it with roofing, and that. And when I come home from the war, it had been so cold that the whole basement cracked right along the top where it was ground level, you know. In other words, the basement stood about on the side toward the road. The basement was up about 2 to 3 foot above the ground level. Well, the wall cracked all the way across. It froze up there and it pushed the wall in. So my dad and I, we tore that whole wall down after the war. We tore the whole wall down and we rebuilt it. And then we started to work on the house. And what I got was, at that time they were tearing down barracks buildings and stuff and all these places where the army was and that. And I bought a barracks building. They tore it down and shipped it. And my dad and I took it off of we rented a truck, took it off of the car that it was on and piled it all on the truck and took it to the lot. Then we started to build the house up above. The barracks building was just all in pieces. Actually, it was a bad deal. It was a bad deal. I don't remember what we paid for it, but it wasn't a good deal. I could have bought lumber cheaper and bought the lumber I wanted because the freight and that on it was so high. And, well, we decided to move in. That's when Dorothy had she had arthritis real bad. Because when I come home on my last Liberty, and she was living in the project at the time. She had been living with my dad and Marie, but she wanted to get out on her own, and she got cheap rent in a housing project, one of these where there were all 3-story brick buildings and all apartments. And when I come home on my last Liberty, her arthritis so bad, she got up to answer the door when I knocked on the door, and she just slid her feet across the floor to get to the door. So, and we had her to doctors and that after I got out, and the doctor says, get out of that condo, get out of that building, because we were on the 2nd floor and we had concrete walls, concrete ceiling, concrete floors, and we were just living in the concrete, inside the concrete. So the doctor says it'd be better if you got out of there. And she says, well, we're building a house up in the country, but we just got the basement now. And he says, go live in the basement. He says, you'll be better off living in that basement than you will be living in this project where she was living. I guess I was living there too. Yeah. While Dad and I did the basement. And the doctor told her that she'd be better off living in a basement. So we moved into the basement up there. And then we started building up. And that would have been 1946, I guess. 1946. And then we were there 8 years building. We were 8 years building that house. That would have been, well, we left there in 55, I think we left there and went to Florida. We had, that's what I say, we sold it, and I had a real estate sell it, because we went to Florida and decided to stay there. And we had a real estate sell it, and they says, oh, if they got $17,000 for it. And we had put $8,000 into it, plus our labor. So, but they told us if it would have been finished, they'd have got more for it than they did because it was unfinished. Well, what we were doing, we had the house pretty well finished, but then we added on another piece, and it was the add-on that wasn't finished. Yeah, we had the brick laid, yeah. Dorothy and I, most of it. Yeah, no, I don't get much help on the brick because they would come up Saturday and Sunday. My brother Bill and my dad and my sister Marie, they would come up Saturday and Sunday. Or Saturday, they'd come up Saturday. They wouldn't all be up Sunday. They'd come up Saturday and work. And we'd do the carpenter work and that, put up the drywall and stuff like that on the Saturday when they would help us. As a matter of fact, before we even had drywall, my sister Marie and well, I guess some of us helped her, covered the whole living room with cardboard and then painted with a sponge, and took a sponge and painted all that cardboard on the living room wall. And when we were building a house, we had second floor on it, and we had just a piece across, like, maybe from that picture over there back to the wall over here. The house was 24 foot, and your mother and Kathleen and Jim, did Jim sleep up there? He might have slept up there too. And we had 2x4s nailed onto the wall that they'd climb up, and they had a mattress on the floor up there, and that's where they slept. And geez, today I'd be so damn afraid if they got up and walked off, they'd get killed. But those days, you didn't think of stuff like that. With your mother, she had more tar on her than I had on the floor because she was putting them in the oven and getting them warm and taking them out, and I was laying them on the floor. Asphalt tiles. Red and cream. We checkerboarded. Some were red, well, like about the color of brick, that red, and the others were off-white, cream color, or somewhat like tan or something. I guess it was winter probably because we had to warm them up. And we kept warm with a fireplace in the basement and cooked on that too, or cooked outside when we lived in the basement. Mom cooked on that fireplace inside or outside with a fire. And we must have lived in a basement a year before we got the upper part closed in and get enough up there that we could live up there. Well, there was one downstairs and two upstairs. There was only 3 bedrooms in the house. When we finished the upstairs, there was 2. But the upstairs was like that up there, you know, where the roof, part of the roof was up to the ceiling. The addition, well, we were going to put a kitchen over there because I had picked up I was working on Miracle Mile, was a shopping center, and I picked up, I got the guys up there to give me some. They were like brick, but they were tile, you know, like ceramic, but they were put like brick. And I had built, on this new section, I had built the sink and the stovetop, and that with these ceramic tile brick that I had laid. And I made the windows that I put in, and we were going to have it for a kitchen. And I guess we would have turned our kitchen into a bedroom, because that's when we had the 5 kids. Yeah, Dolly was born in there. Well, I was glazing, I was working. And I'd come home at night, the brick, when we put the brick on, Dorothy and I put most of that brick on at night when I'd come home from work. We'd put it on. One night we were out there till 2 o'clock in the morning putting up brick with extension lights and stuff. It was a good brick job. The hell of it was, the house wasn't made for brick. The plans we had didn't call for brick. And we had the house up and all the wood up and covered with tar paper when we decided to put brick on. Well, then when we decided to put brick on, we had to put another footer all the way around the house next to the footer that was there originally, because the footer that was there wasn't for brick. And we had to put another footer all the way around. And Dorothy and I mixed the concrete by hand and made forms and put it in there. We stepped it off going down a hill like that and laid the brick. Oh, it's a good looking brick house. We did everything. The first roof we had on, I don't know what color shingles were on that roof. Well, when we put them up, we were we thought we'd make it different. We put a row of red shingles, a row of green shingles, a row of red shingles, a row of green shingles. But that picture was taken much later. That's not the way the house looked when we left it. I think they even put new windows in that. And we had windows I put in the front, picture windows, but it was all salvaged glass that I got. I worked with the glaziers I worked with. They'd help me. If they'd be out that way and they'd take out a piece of glass out of a storefront and put a new piece in, they'd take the old piece and drop it off at on my lot for me to use on the house. We had a lot of help. But I think they're new. Let's see, I don't know. I'll take a look at it. See what the difference is. Oh yeah, we had what they call BG windows in here and here. But see, they're all, well, ours were all alike. You don't see the front of the house, but we had two big windows across the front, there and there, that were just solid plate glass. You couldn't open them. They were just plate glass. This gave me the hardest part, trying to make, I ought to say a house, I'd like them things, like the roof cut off like that. And that was my hardest problem I had. The cost? Well, I can tell you, we had $8,000 put into the house of materials. With me and my brother, my dad. My dad helped a whole lot. That was when we moved, after we moved into it. That's not counting the time before when we built the basement, before the war. And after the war, a little bit to get the basement ready to live in. But we lived in it. We lived in it the whole 8 years that I'm counting. But that was I'd say we probably had a year's work on it before, my dad and I. Just my dad and I worked on it until we got the basement to where we could live in it. But yeah, Dolly was born there in '50. We were living in it in 50.